Hello again, my dear Earth. Do you feel the gentle turning of your axis, the slow rhythm of day into night, night into day? Tonight, let me tell you about one of your children, a young nation born in fire and hope that grew upon your eastern shores and spread across a vast continent. A story of dreams and struggles, of people seeking something new. Rest now, Earth. Let your waves lap softly against those shores and listen to the story of America. Close your eyes, breathe deeply. Let me begin.
The dream takes root. It was the summer of 1776. In a brick building in Philadelphia, men gathered in the sweltering heat, debating, arguing, dreaming. They were colonists, subjects of a distant king, but they were tired of taxes without representation, tired of being ruled from across an ocean, tired of being told what they could and couldn't do on their own land. And so they wrote. Thomas Jefferson, with his careful hand, put words to parchment, words that would echo through centuries. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. On the 4th of July, they declared themselves free, independent, no longer colonies, but states, United States, a new nation, fragile as a newborn, taking its first breath. But declaring independence and winning it are two different things.
The first fight for freedom. The Revolutionary War had already begun. British redcoats marched across the colonies. General George Washington led a ragtag army of farmers, merchants, and dreamers. They were poorly trained, poorly equipped, often hungry and cold. At Valley Forge, in the winter of 1777, Washington's army nearly broke. Snow fell, supplies ran out. Men wrapped their feet in rags, leaving bloody footprints in the snow. Some deserted, some died, but others stayed, huddled around fires, believing in something larger than themselves. The French came to help, seeing an opportunity to weaken their British rivals. Ships crossed the ocean, soldiers and supplies arrived, the tide slowly turned. At Yorktown in 1781, British General Cornwallis surrendered. The band played a tune called "The World Turned Upside Down," and indeed it had. The colonies had won. America was born. But birth is only the beginning. Building a nation. The states were free, but fractured. Each operated almost like its own country, with its own currency, its own laws. They bickered and disagreed. The Articles of Confederation, their first attempt at government, were too weak to hold them together. So in 1787, they gathered again in Philadelphia. 55 delegates from 12 states, meeting in secret through a hot summer. They argued about representation, about power, about slavery, about the future. James Madison took careful notes. Alexander Hamilton pushed for a strong central government. Benjamin Franklin, now elderly, tried to broker compromises. For 4 months they debated. What emerged was the Constitution, a framework for government unlike any other. 3 branches to balance each other, powers divided between states and federal government, a system of checks and balances. We the people, it began, not we the king or we the states, but we the people. George Washington became the first president in 1789. He set precedents carefully, knowing everything he did would echo through history. He served 2 terms and then stepped down, establishing that no leader should cling to power forever. The capital moved from New York to a new city on the Potomac River named Washington in his honor. America was finding its footing, learning to walk. Growing pains. The young nation faced challenges immediately. Political parties emerged despite Washington's warnings. Federalists, led by Hamilton, wanted a strong central government. Democratic Republicans, led by Jefferson, feared centralized power. In 1800, Jefferson won the presidency in a bitter, contested election. Power transferred peacefully from one party to another precedent that would prove precious. 3 years later, Jefferson made a decision that would change America forever. France offered to sell a vast territory west of the Mississippi River. The Louisiana Purchase doubled the size of the nation overnight. 800,000 square miles for $15 million. Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to explore this new land. For 2 years they journeyed west through plains and mountains to the Pacific Ocean and back. They mapped rivers, cataloged plants and animals, met native tribes who had lived on this land for thousands of years. The young nation was looking west toward endless horizons. The Second War. But America's independence was tested again. Britain still didn't quite accept that its former colonies were truly free. British ships stopped American vessels at sea, impressing American sailors into the British Navy. Britain supplied weapons to Native American tribes resisting American expansion. In 1812, America declared war on Britain again. This war went poorly at first. British forces burned Washington, D.C. President Madison fled as the White House went up in flames. But Americans rallied. At Fort McHenry in Baltimore, Francis Scott Key watched through the night as British ships bombarded the fort. When dawn came and the American flag still flew, he wrote a poem that would become the national anthem, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light." Andrew Jackson won a stunning victory at New Orleans. The war ended in a stalemate, but America had proven it could defend itself. The nation settled into an era of good feelings, growing, expanding, building.
Westward, always westward. Americans pushed west, drawn by land, by opportunity, by the promise of new beginnings. They traveled in covered wagons along the Oregon Trail. They risked everything to start over in unknown territory. Families packed their belongings and left everything familiar behind. In 1848, gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill in California. The gold rush brought hundreds of thousands of people streaming west. San Francisco exploded from a sleepy town into a booming city almost overnight. The nation stretched from Atlantic to Pacific. Manifest destiny, they called it, the belief that America was destined to span the continent. But this expansion came at a terrible cost. Native Americans who had lived on this land for millennia were pushed aside. Treaties were signed and broken. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 forced thousands of Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, and other tribes to march west on what became known as the Trail of Tears. Thousands died along the way.
The Spanish and Mexican people who had lived in Texas, California, and the Southwest found themselves suddenly living in American territory after the Mexican-American War. America was growing, but not everyone benefited from that growth. Some were trampled beneath it.
The nation divided. By the mid-1800s, a terrible tension was building. The North was industrializing. Factories rose in cities. Immigrants from Ireland and Germany poured in, seeking opportunity. Wage labor became the norm. The South remained agricultural, its economy built on cotton and tobacco, and that economy was built on something evil: slavery. 4 million African Americans lived in bondage, treated as property, families torn apart, subjected to cruelty and violence. They resisted in every way they could. Some escaped on the Underground Railroad, guided by brave conductors like Harriet Tubman. Some rebelled. Some preserved their humanity through community, faith, and hope. The question of slavery divided the nation. Should new states entering the Union allow slavery or not? Politicians tried compromise after compromise: the Missouri Compromise, the Compromise of 1850, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Each temporary solution only delayed the inevitable. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president. He opposed the expansion of slavery. Southern states, fearing the end of their way of life, began to secede. South Carolina left first, then Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas. They formed the Confederate States of America. Lincoln pleaded with them to return. He said in his inaugural address, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies." But war came anyway.
Brother against brother. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The Civil War had begun. It was the bloodiest conflict in American history. Brother fought brother. Father fought son. More than 600,000 soldiers died, more than the number of Americans killed in all other wars combined. At Bull Run, at Antietam, at Shiloh, at Gettysburg, young men fell in waves. The fields ran red. The medical tents overflowed. Letters home spoke of horrors beyond imagination. Lincoln struggled to find generals who could win. The war dragged on year after year. The North had more men, more factories, more resources, but the South fought desperately, defending their homeland. On January 1, 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that all slaves in rebel states were free. It changed the war from a fight to preserve the Union into a fight to end slavery. African American men joined the Union Army. Nearly 200,000 fought for their freedom and their country. At Gettysburg in July 1863, the tide turned. 3 days of brutal fighting, over 50,000 casualties, but the Union held. Confederate General Lee retreated. He would never again have the strength to invade the North. 4 months later, Lincoln dedicated a cemetery at Gettysburg. His speech lasted just 2 minutes. 77 years ago, he began. He spoke of a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He called on Americans to ensure that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
The Union restored. In April 1865, General Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. The war was over.
The Union was preserved. Slavery was ended. But 5 days later, as Lincoln watched a play at Ford's Theater, an actor named John Wilkes Booth shot him. Lincoln died the next morning. The nation mourned the man who had held it together through its darkest hour. Vice President Andrew Johnson became president, facing the enormous task of reconstruction. How do you put a broken nation back together? How do you integrate 4 million newly freed people into society? The 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th granted citizenship to all born in America, including former slaves. The 15th gave African American men the right to vote. For a brief moment, it seemed a new, more just America might emerge. African American men were elected to Congress. Schools opened for black children. New opportunities appeared. But white Southerners resisted. They formed groups like the Ku Klux Klan to terrorize black Americans. They passed Jim Crow laws to segregate society and strip away voting rights. The promise of Reconstruction faded. Still, America began to heal and grow again.
The Gilded Age. In the decades after the Civil War, America transformed. Railroads spread across the continent like steel spiderwebs. The Transcontinental Railroad, completed in 1869, linked east and west. You could now travel from New York to San Francisco by train. Industry boomed. Steel mills, oil refineries, meatpacking plants. Men like Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, and J.P. Morgan built massive fortunes. They were called robber barons by some, captains of industry by others. Cities swelled. Skyscrapers rose, made possible by steel frames and elevators. Electric lights replaced gas lamps. Telephones connected homes and businesses. Millions of immigrants arrived, fleeing poverty and persecution in Europe. They passed through Ellis Island, seeing the Statue of Liberty, a gift from France, her torch raised high. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. They worked in factories, mines, and mills, often in terrible conditions. Long hours, low pay, dangerous work. Children labored alongside adults. Workers began to organize into unions, fighting for better conditions. Strikes sometimes turned violent. At Haymarket in Chicago, at Homestead in Pennsylvania, at Pullman outside Chicago, workers and owners clashed. America was becoming an industrial giant, but the wealth was not shared equally. Mark Twain called it the Gilded Age, gold on the surface, but base metal underneath.
A new century. As the 20th century dawned, America was ready to step on to the world stage. In 1898, the Spanish-American War made America an imperial power. The nation acquired Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Cuba gained independence, but remained under American influence. Theodore Roosevelt became president in 1901 after President McKinley was assassinated. Young, energetic, Roosevelt embodied American confidence. He pushed for conservation, creating national parks to preserve wilderness. He challenged powerful corporations. He built the Panama Canal, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific. "Speak softly and carry a big stick," he said. But while Roosevelt and others looked outward, problems remained at home. African Americans in the South lived under brutal Jim Crow segregation. Women still couldn't vote. Workers still struggled for fair treatment. Progressives pushed for reform. Journalists called muckrakers exposed corruption and poor conditions. Laws were passed to regulate food safety, limit monopolies, protect workers. In 1920, after decades of struggle by suffragettes like Susan Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the 19th Amendment finally gave women the right to vote. America was changing, growing, modernizing.
The Great War. In 1914, war erupted in Europe. At first, America stayed out. President Woodrow Wilson declared neutrality. Too proud to fight, he said. But German submarines sank American ships. Germany tried to ally with Mexico against America. Public opinion shifted. In April 1917, America entered World War I. Over 4 million American men served. They shipped overseas to France, joining the trenches, the mud, the horror. At Belleau Wood, at the Argonne Forest, Americans fought and died in a European war. The American entry helped tip the balance. In November 1918, Germany surrendered. The war was over. Over 9 million soldiers had died, millions more civilians. Wilson went to Paris to negotiate peace. He proposed a League of Nations to prevent future wars, but the Senate refused to join. America retreated into isolation, wanting nothing more to do with European problems. The soldiers came home to a changed nation. Roaring and crashing. The 1920s roared. The economy boomed. New technologies abounded. Radio connected the nation. Movies became popular entertainment. Cars rolled off assembly lines, making Henry Ford rich and putting America on wheels. Jazz music filled the air. Flappers danced with short skirts and bobbed hair. Prohibition banned alcohol, but speakeasies flourished, and gangsters like Al Capone got rich on illegal booze. The Harlem Renaissance celebrated African-American culture. Writers like Langston Hughes, musicians like Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong created art that spoke to the American experience. It seemed like the good times would never end. But in October 1929, the stock market crashed. Banks failed. Businesses closed. Millions lost their jobs. Bread lines formed. Families lost their homes. Shanty towns called Hoovervilles, named bitterly after President Hoover, sprang up in cities. The Great Depression had begun, the worst economic crisis in American history. Farmers in Oklahoma and the surrounding plains suffered a double blow. Drought and poor farming practices created the Dust Bowl. Massive dust storms blackened the sky. Families loaded everything they owned into jalopies and headed west, searching for work in California. America was broken. People were desperate. They needed hope. A New Deal. In 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected president. "The only thing we have to fear," he said in his inaugural address, "is fear itself." He moved quickly. In his first 100 days, he pushed through sweeping legislation. The New Deal, he called it. Banks were stabilized.
Jobs programs put people to work, building roads, bridges, dams, parks. The Civilian Conservation Corps employed young men to plant trees and fight erosion. The Tennessee Valley Authority brought electricity to rural areas. Social Security provided pensions for the elderly. Not everything worked. The Depression lingered through the 30s, but Roosevelt gave people hope. His fireside chats on the radio brought his voice into living rooms, reassuring, explaining, connecting. Slowly, painfully, America began to recover. But across the oceans, darkness was gathering.
The world at war again. In Europe, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis rose to power in Germany. In Asia, Japan invaded China. War erupted again in 1939. America tried to stay out, but Roosevelt quietly helped Britain, which stood alone against Nazi Germany after France fell. Then, on December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Over 2,000 Americans died. The fleet burned. The next day, Roosevelt asked Congress to declare war. America entered World War II. Over 16 million Americans served. They fought in North Africa, in Italy, on the beaches of Normandy, across France and Germany. They island hopped across the Pacific. At Iwo Jima, at Okinawa, at countless other places, they fought a determined enemy. At home, factories converted to war production. Women took factory jobs, building planes and tanks and ships. Rosie the Riveter became a symbol of women's contribution. African Americans served in segregated units, fighting for freedom abroad while denied full equality at home. Scientists worked in secret in Los Alamos, New Mexico, building an atomic bomb. The war in Europe ended in May 1945 when Germany surrendered. Hitler was dead. The Holocaust was revealed. 6 million Jews murdered. Millions more Slavs, Roma, disabled people, political prisoners, and others. The world recoiled in horror. In August, America dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Over 200,000 people died, mostly civilians. Japan surrendered. World War II was over. America emerged from the war as a superpower, but the atomic age brought new fears.
The Cold War. A new enemy emerged. The Soviet Union, America's wartime ally, became its rival. Two superpowers, two ideologies, capitalism versus communism, democracy versus totalitarianism. The Cold War never became a hot war between the superpowers, but it shaped everything for nearly 50 years. An Iron Curtain divided Europe. America helped rebuild Western Europe with the Marshall Plan. The Berlin airlift broke a Soviet blockade. NATO formed to counter Soviet power. At home, fear of communism took hold. Senator Joseph McCarthy led witch hunts for communists in government, Hollywood, and everywhere else. Lives and careers were destroyed on flimsy accusations. The Korean War broke out in 1950. American troops fought to stop communist North Korea from conquering South Korea. The war ended in stalemate in 1953. The Soviets launched Sputnik in 1957, the first satellite. America panicked, fearing it was falling behind. The space race began. Science and math education were emphasized. America was determined to catch up. The Civil Rights Movement. While America competed with the Soviets abroad, a movement for justice grew at home. African Americans had waited long enough for the promises of the Civil War to be fulfilled. A century after emancipation, they still faced segregation, discrimination, violence, and denied voting rights in much of the South. They organized, they protested, they demanded their rights. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled in Brown v. Board of Education that school segregation was unconstitutional. In 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted over a year. A young minister named Martin Luther King Jr. emerged as a leader, preaching nonviolent resistance. In 1960, 4 black college students sat at a whites-only lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina, and refused to leave. Sit-ins spread across the South. Freedom riders challenged segregation on interstate buses. They were beaten and arrested, but kept coming. In 1963, King led a march on Washington. 250,000 people gathered. King spoke from the Lincoln Memorial steps. "I have a dream," he said, "that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." Television brought the violence of segregation into living rooms. Police dogs and fire hoses turned on peaceful protesters, children marching for freedom. The nation watched and was forced to confront its contradictions. President Lyndon Johnson pushed through the Civil Rights Act of 1964, banning discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 protected the right to vote. Progress came through courage and sacrifice. Activists were beaten and killed. Medgar Evers, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner, Viola Liuzzo, Jimmy Lee Jackson, and in April 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. himself, assassinated in Memphis. But the legal framework for equality was finally in place. The work of making it real continued.
The 60s. The 1960s were turbulent years. President John F. Kennedy inspired a generation with his youth and idealism. "Ask not what your country can do for you," he said. "Ask what you can do for your country." He created the Peace Corps. He challenged America to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. But in 1963, he was assassinated in Dallas. The nation mourned. America deepened its involvement in Vietnam, trying to prevent communist North Vietnam from taking over South Vietnam. By the late 60s, over 500,000 American troops were there. The war divided the nation. Young people protested. "Hell no, we won't go," they chanted. The counterculture emerged, rejecting traditional values, experimenting with new lifestyles. On July 20th, 1969, Apollo 11 landed on the moon. Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. America had won the space race. But the triumph couldn't erase the divisions. Cities burned in riots. Students protested. At Kent State in 1970, National Guard troops fired on protesters, killing 4 students.
The war finally ended in 1975 with North Vietnam victorious. Over 58,000 Americans had died. The nation was exhausted, disillusioned. Changing times. The 1970s brought new challenges. President Richard Nixon, who had helped ease tensions with China and the Soviet Union, resigned in disgrace in 1974 after the Watergate scandal. He had tried to cover up illegal activities. It was a blow to faith in government. The economy struggled. Oil shocks caused gas shortages and inflation. American industry faced competition from abroad, especially from Japan. Steel mills closed. Auto plants laid off workers. But new industries were emerging. In Silicon Valley and California, young entrepreneurs were building computers in garages. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak founded Apple. Bill Gates founded Microsoft. The personal computer revolution was beginning. The women's movement gained strength. More women entered the workforce and pursued careers. They demanded equal pay, reproductive rights, and an end to discrimination. The environmental movement pushed for cleaner air and water. The first Earth Day was celebrated in 1970. Laws were passed to protect the environment. In 1980, Ronald Reagan was elected president. His optimistic conservatism appealed to many Americans. "It's morning in America again," his campaign said.
The Cold War ends. Reagan confronted the Soviet Union. "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall," he demanded at the Berlin Wall in 1987. But the Soviet system was crumbling from within. Economic stagnation, political repression, the war in Afghanistan. New leader Mikhail Gorbachev tried reforms. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Jubilant Germans tore it down with hammers and bare hands. Eastern European countries broke free from Soviet control. In 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved. The Cold War was over. America had won without firing a shot in direct conflict. President George H.W. Bush spoke of a new world order. America was the sole superpower. But what would it do with that power?
A new millennium. The 1990s were prosperous. The economy boomed. The internet revolutionized communication and commerce. .com companies sprouted everywhere. Bill Clinton was president through most of the decade. The nation enjoyed peace and prosperity, though Clinton was impeached over a scandal, though acquitted by the Senate. On December 31, 1999, the world celebrated the new millennium. Americans were optimistic. The future looked bright. But on September 11, 2001, everything changed. Terrorists hijacked 4 airplanes. 2 crashed into the World Trade Center towers in New York. 1 hit the Pentagon. 1 crashed in Pennsylvania after passengers fought back. Nearly 3,000 people died. America was shocked, angry, grieving. The sense of invulnerability shattered. President George W. Bush declared a war on terror. America invaded Afghanistan to destroy al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban regime that harbored them. Then, in 2003, America invaded Iraq, claiming it possessed weapons of mass destruction. None were found. The wars dragged on. Thousands of Americans died.
Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis and Afghans died. The costs mounted in blood and treasure.
Crisis and change. In 2008, the economy collapsed. Banks failed. The housing market crashed. Millions lost their homes and jobs. It was the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Barack Obama was elected president, the first African American to hold the office. His election was historic, a sign of progress. "Yes, we can," his campaign slogan declared. Obama pushed through a stimulus package and healthcare reform. The economy slowly recovered, though inequality remained a problem. Not everyone benefited from the recovery. Technology continued to transform life. Smartphones put the internet in everyone's pocket. Social media connected people in new ways, but also created new divisions. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram reshaped how people communicated and got information. The nation remained divided. Red states and blue states, urban and rural, different visions of what America should be. Recent years. In 2016, Donald Trump was elected president, a real estate developer and reality TV star with no political experience. His campaign tapped into anger and frustration. His presidency was controversial and divisive. In 2020, a pandemic struck. COVID-19 spread around the world. Millions died, economies shut down, people isolated in their homes, life stopped. America struggled to respond, hospitals overwhelmed, supply chains disrupted, political leaders fought over masks and lockdowns. But scientists developed vaccines in record time, a triumph of innovation. Joe Biden was elected president in 2020, though Trump refused to concede, claiming without evidence that the election was stolen. On January 6, 2021, a mob stormed the Capitol, trying to overturn the election. Democracy held, but barely. The pandemic ebbed. Life began to return to something like normal. But everything felt different, the divisions deeper, the challenges greater. Climate change threatened, political polarization intensified, economic inequality widened, questions about race and justice remained unresolved. The story continues. And here we are now, Earth. 248 years since that declaration in Philadelphia. 248 years of struggle and triumph, of progress and setbacks, of dreams pursued and sometimes deferred. America is not perfect. It never has been. The gap between its ideals and its reality has always existed. All men are created equal, they declared, while holding people in slavery. A nation of immigrants that sometimes fears immigrants. A land of opportunity where opportunity is not equally distributed. But Americans keep trying, keep working toward that more perfect union, keep believing that tomorrow can be better than today. The story of America is still being written. New chapters unfold every day. New voices join the chorus. New dreams take flight. It's a story of many stories, of Native Americans whose ancestors lived here for thousands of years before any Europeans arrived, of enslaved Africans who built so much of the nation's wealth, of immigrants from every corner of Earth who came seeking a better life, of workers and farmers, soldiers and activists, artists and inventors, all of them part of the American tapestry. Sleep now, dear Earth. Can you feel them, Earth? All those lives lived on your surface, all those hopes and dreams, all that struggle and striving. America rests now on your eastern shores and western coasts, spread across plains and mountains, north to south, east to west. Its cities glow with light, its fields grow food, its people sleep and dream. Some dream of success and prosperity, some dream of justice and equality, some dream simply of safety and security for their children. Tomorrow they'll wake and work and argue and create. They'll make mistakes and try to fix them. They'll build and tear down and build again. Because that's what people do. They keep going. They keep trying. Rest now, Earth. Let America sleep, gathering strength for tomorrow's challenges. I'm here as always, hanging in the sky above, watching over, pulling at the tides, a faithful companion through all of history's long nights. The story continues, but for now, sleep. Sleep, dear Earth. Good night.